Everyone believed the billionaire's baby had been born blind. The doctors confirmed it. Specialists gave up. Even his own father stopped believing there could ever be hope. For months the child lived in silence, never reacting, never smiling, never seeing. But then a new maid arrived. She had no degrees, no fancy training, nothing that made her special on paper. She was just there to clean. Yet what she noticed inside that house changed everything. One small moment during an ordinary bath revealed a truth no one else had seen. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and tell us where you're watching from. We love to know that. Charles Morgan, a powerful, self-made billionaire businessman, known for his precision, discipline. After the helicopter crash that killed his wife Isabella, Charles Morgan shut himself inside his vast estate. He stopped going out. He stopped answering calls. He stopped living. The only thing that mattered to him now was his baby boy, Noah. But Noah had been born blind. Doctors told Charles his son's eyes didn't respond to light at all. The diagnosis crushed him. Since that day, Charles has done everything he can to take care of his child. He feeds him, bathes him, holds him close. He never hires a nanny, never leaves the estate. His entire world has become one tiny heartbeat, Noah's, yet the boy just sits quietly. He doesn't cry. He doesn't laugh. His little face remains still, his eyes staring into nowhere. It's as though the baby doesn't even know anyone exists. Charles fills every corner of the nursery with color, bright toys, spinning mobiles, stuffed bears that sing. He opens the curtains wide, lets in the light, talks softly while changing Noah's diaper, shakes a rattle near his face, hoping to see even a flicker of reaction. But the baby never blinks, never turns his head, just stillness. Charles begins to wonder if Noah can even hear, though doctors insist his hearing is fine. So why doesn't he respond? Charles plays gentle music. Sometimes he switches languages, testing tones, accents, rhythms, but nothing breaks through. Noah just sits there, trapped inside his silence. Sometimes Charles wonders if his son even knows who he is. Does he feel the warmth of his arms? Does he understand what love is? Questions with no answers slowly fill the house until silence becomes heavier than grief itself. The Morgan estate was once alive, filled with voices, laughter, the echo of Isabella's heels on marble floors. Now it's an empty shell. Every corner reminds Charles of what he's lost. The only sound left is the echo of his own footsteps, the soft hum of a baby monitor that never makes a noise. No cries, no babbling, just quiet. He walks through pristine rooms untouched for months, the grand hall where toys lie scattered like forgotten memories, stuffed animals with unblinking eyes, musical blocks that never play. Even Noah's room, painted with cheerful colors and cartoon walls, feels hollow, lifeless, unreal. The baby doesn't look at anything, doesn't reach for anything. It's as if he's existing without truly being alive. Charles sits for hours just watching him, waiting for something, a smile, a tear, any sign of emotion, but nothing comes. Every night he carries Noah upstairs, bathes him carefully, then reads stories aloud to a child who never looks up, never responds. Still, Charles keeps doing it, because that's all he has left, routine and hope that refuses to die completely. His grief for Isabella bleeds into frustration over Noah's condition. He never imagined raising a child alone, much less one who doesn't see or respond. Some nights he breaks down quietly, tears hidden in the dark. Other nights he just stares at the ceiling, numb. He wonders if he's failing, if he's missing something. Maybe there's one miracle left undone, one step he hasn't tried. So he searches the internet deep into the night, buying anything that promises stimulation, toys, lights, sound machines. Each box arrives filled with hope and leaves filled with disappointment. Nothing works. Charles calls every specialist he can find, video sessions, in-person visits, endless reports and tests. He listens carefully, follows every instruction to the letter. Some tell him to try therapy, others tell him to wait. But time feels like the enemy, and patience turns into pain. He used to be a man of control, a leader in business, confident, untouchable. Now he's just a father lost in his own home, surrounded by wealth that means nothing. Every day is the same: feed, change, hope, fail. The silence feels alive, a thing that breathes between them. Sometimes he holds Noah and cries quietly into the baby's shoulder. Sometimes he whispers Isabella's name, asking her what to do. He watches old videos, her smile, her laughter, her voice saying the baby's name. That hope she carried is gone now, and what's left is a man fading alongside his child. Late one night, Charles stands by the crib. Noah sleeps, chest rising and falling in perfect rhythm. His tiny hands rest beside his still face, eyes half open yet seeing nothing. Charles leans on the railing, drained. He's tried everything: toys, light machines, therapy, sound. Nothing ever changes. He runs a trembling hand through his hair, whispering under his breath, "Do you even know I'm here?" No answer, just the hum of silence wrapping around the room. The colors on the wall, once painted to bring joy, now look cruel, mocking. Charles sighs, turns off the light, and leaves only the soft glow of the night lamp. He sits in the rocking chair beside the crib, watching the boy, his face caught between exhaustion and sorrow. In that stillness, the mansion feels like a museum of grief, every artifact polished, every heartbeat buried. And deep down, Charles wonders if it will ever change. Morning arrives with no promise. At sunrise, a black car rolls through the iron gates of the Morgan estate. Inside sits a woman clutching a small, worn bag and a folded letter. Her contract. Her name is Sophia Hale. A driver opens the door without speaking. Sophia steps out, staring at the mansion. The stone driveway gleaming, windows spotless, hedges perfectly cut. It's beautiful but lifeless, like a place frozen in time. She walks toward the grand entrance. The moment the doors open, silence greets her like a wall. No laughter, no footsteps, not even the faint sound of a television somewhere far away. Just still air and wealth that feels cold. A tall man in a black suit, Mr. Finch, meets her in the hall. His face is expressionless as he guides her through the estate. He shows her the kitchen, the laundry room, the marble atrium, the guest corridors. Everything shines, untouched, almost unreal. "Mr. Morgan prefers strict routines," he says without emotion. Sophia nods. She's worked for wealthy families before, but this house feels different, colder, more haunted. As they walk, she notices a room with toys scattered across the floor. A red ball, a stuffed bear, a small blue truck. But no sound of a child playing, only the echo of their footsteps. Upstairs, Finch opens the door to her room. Small, simple, clean. A single bed, a narrow closet, one window overlooking the gardens. It's enough. Sophia unpacks slowly. A few clothes, a framed photo she doesn't set on the table, a folded blanket that still smells faintly of baby powder. She tells no one, but her own baby died months ago. No one knew why. One night he was crying in her arms. The next morning he was gone. No warning, no reason. Her life shattered quietly after that. She quit her job, left her apartment, cut everyone off. She didn't want pity. She didn't want questions. She just wanted silence, a place to disappear. When she found the job posting for a live-in maid at a distant estate, she applied without hesitation. She didn't care who hired her. She just needed to breathe again. Somewhere no one knew her name. Now, standing alone in that quiet room, she stares at the window and whispers to herself, "This will do." A new place, a new start, maybe a new reason to exist. Outside, the morning light spills gently over the estate walls, touching everything except the sadness buried inside. After lunch that day, Sophia began her first round of work on the ground floor of the Morgan estate. The silence here was not ordinary. It was heavy, the kind of silence that made you forget your own footsteps. She moved carefully, dusting the glass tables, folding blankets, aligning books on shelves that hadn't been touched in months. The air smelled faintly of polish and loneliness. A basket of baby toys sat near the marble fireplace. A red ball, a stuffed bear, small plastic blocks. Sophia knelt, collecting each one, placing them neatly back where they belonged. But from the corner of her eye, she saw something that froze her in place. Across the room, near the soft beige carpet, sat a baby. Still, completely still. He was small, his head slightly tilted to one side, a toy car hanging loosely from his hand. His eyes were open, wide and unfocused, as though staring through the world rather than at it. Sophia didn't move. She had worked with children before. She knew how even quiet babies fidgeted or made some sound. This one didn't. She stayed where she was, afraid to break the fragile quiet. The boy didn't blink, didn't look at her, didn't make a sound. His little hands were motionless, his chest rising and falling softly. Something about him felt wrong, not just blind, disconnected, like he wasn't really there. The butler's voice suddenly broke the silence behind her. "That's Noah," Finch said flatly. "Mr. Morgan's son. Don't try to play with him. He doesn't respond." Then he turned and walked away. Sophia's eyes stayed on the child even after Finch disappeared down the hall. She stood there for a long moment, her heart beating faster than she expected. Something deep inside her, something she thought she'd buried, began to stir. She picked up her cleaning rag again, but her gaze kept drifting back toward the boy. He still hadn't moved. The toy car hung in his fingers like it had been forgotten long ago. Sophia continued cleaning, but slower now, every sweep of her hand mechanical. Her mind wasn't on the dust or the furniture anymore. It was on the small child sitting in silence on that mat, breathing but unreachable. She wanted to look away, but she couldn't, because she had seen that look before, that blank stillness. Those unfocused eyes. It was the same look her baby had during his last few hours alive. That haunting calm that doesn't belong on a child's face. Sophia swallowed hard, blinked, and forced herself to move again. She cleaned until the end of her shift, keeping busy so she wouldn't think too much. But every time she passed the playmate, she felt that same ache in her chest. When night came, she lay on her narrow bed staring at the ceiling. The house was silent, but her thoughts weren't. She saw the boy's face again and again, calm, empty, lost. And that silence inside him sounded exactly like the one inside her. She turned on her side, pulling the blanket up to her chin. She told herself not to get attached. She wasn't here to care. She was here to survive. But something in her heart whispered otherwise. The next morning, she woke early and went downstairs. Sunlight was leaking softly through the tall windows of the grand hall. Finch was nowhere to be seen. The air felt less strict, like the house was still waking up. Sophia walked into the small kitchen to prepare warm water for cleaning. When she heard a faint sound, a coo, or maybe just a breath, coming from the living room, she followed it. There he was again, Noah, sitting in the same spot on the playmat. He hadn't moved an inch from yesterday, the same stuffed bear beside him, the same blank eyes fixed on nothing. Sophia hesitated, standing in the doorway. Then, slowly, she walked closer. "Good morning," she whispered softly, even though she knew he couldn't hear her the way most children would. No response. She crouched beside him. His little hands were cold. He was breathing, but his eyes, those pale, distant eyes, never blinked. Sophia reached out instinctively to adjust his blanket. Still, no reaction. For a second, she almost spoke again, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she just sat quietly beside him, and for reasons she couldn't explain, tears filled her eyes. It wasn't pity, it was recognition. She whispered to herself, "You poor thing. What happened to you?" That afternoon, Charles appeared briefly, holding papers and a phone. His voice was low but firm, all control and exhaustion. He barely glanced at Sophia as he passed, yet even from a distance she could see how hollow his eyes were. This house didn't just belong to grief, it had been built around it. Over the next few days, Sophia learned the rhythms of the estate. Meals arrived at strict times. Finch moved like a ghost, following routines without emotion. Charles barely spoke to anyone. Sophia kept to herself, working quietly, always noticing the details others ignored, the unopened toys, the spotless floors, the dustless silence. And always Noah, unmoving on his mat, like a statue carved from something fragile. Every night Sophia lay awake thinking about him, about the way his body never shifted, his face never reacted, his voice never existed. It haunted her, the same way the emptiness of her own loss haunted her. And even though she didn't understand it yet, that silence was pulling her in. Days passed, and then came the moment that would change everything. It started as part of her daily chores. Sophia had been instructed to assist with bathing the baby each morning. A routine Finch explained in his usual dry tone. She prepared the space in the marble atrium, a wide glass table that had been converted into a bathing station. A round plastic basin, warm water, baby soap, clean towels. It felt mechanical, like everything else in the house. Charles entered quietly, carrying Noah in his arms. He didn't say much, just placed the baby gently into Sophia's care, then stepped back. She followed the written instructions on the chart. Support the neck, wash gently, rinse lightly. Noah didn't move, didn't cry. The room was filled with only the soft sound of water. Sophia's hands were careful, slow. She unbuttoned the small onesie, removed the socks, lowered him into the warm water. Tiny bubbles floated up around his chest. He stayed completely still. Sophia dipped a sponge into the basin and began to clean him. Arms, belly, shoulders. Her touch was precise, professional, but her heart felt heavier with every motion. He looked so peaceful, yet so far away. She squeezed the sponge again and moved to his forehead. As the warm foam slid gently down toward his temple, something tiny happened. A blink. It was small, barely noticeable, but she saw it. Noah blinked. Sophia froze. The sponge stopped midair. Her breath caught. She waited, afraid to believe what she'd seen. Then she did it again. She dabbed the other side of his forehead, letting a drop of foam slip near his other eye. He blinked again. Her heart skipped. It wasn't a reflex. It wasn't random. It was a response. Sophia's eyes widened as she stared at him. Noah didn't move again, but something had shifted. A flicker, a spark, a fragment of connection. The smallest blink in the world. But to her, it was everything. Sophia sat frozen beside the basin, staring at the small boy in disbelief. It was only a blink, something ordinary, something every baby does 100 times a day. But for Noah, it meant everything. He had never reacted before, never once. She waited, her breath trapped somewhere between hope and fear, afraid that if she moved, the moment would vanish. The house seemed to hold its breath with her, no sound, only the faint ripple of warm water around his small body. Sophia slowly repeated the motion, squeezing the sponge, letting the foam run down his forehead again. Once more Noah blinked, and this time a faint sound followed. Barely a whisper, just a small hum from deep inside his chest. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear it. It wasn't just her imagination. She wasn't dreaming. He had reacted. For the first time since she arrived, Sophia smiled. It was small, trembling, uncertain, but it was real. Something inside her cracked open, a space she thought she'd sealed shut the day her own child died. Noah didn't move again, and the silence returned. But to Sophia, it wasn't the same silence anymore. There was something alive within it now, a fragile possibility, almost invisible, but there. When the bath ended, she wrapped him in a soft towel and lifted him gently against her shoulder. He didn't resist, didn't cry, just rested quietly. His warmth against her chest made her throat tighten. She whispered softly, even though she knew he wouldn't answer. "It's okay, little one. I see you." Her voice broke on the last word. That night, Sophia couldn't sleep. The image of those blinks replayed endlessly in her mind, looping like a heartbeat she couldn't silence. Every detail felt etched into her, the look of his eyes, the sound of that tiny hum. She lay awake on her narrow bed, staring into the darkness, wondering if she had imagined it. But she knew she hadn't. Something had changed. Over the next few days, she watched him closely during every task, feeding, cleaning, organizing toys around him. Nothing dramatic happened, but she noticed things she hadn't before, tiny twitches of his fingers, the way his head tilted slightly toward her when she spoke. How sometimes, just sometimes, his breathing slowed when she was near. No one else seemed to see it. Finch remained mechanical, emotionless, following orders, keeping time. Charles barely came out of his study. His face carried the exhaustion of a man who had forgotten what hope looked like. Sophia didn't tell anyone about the blink. Not yet. It felt too sacred, too delicate, like a candle flame that could die with a single breath. Every night, she sat by her window after everyone had gone to sleep, whispering to herself about what she'd seen. A part of her wanted to believe it was fate, like maybe she had been sent here for a reason. But another part, the broken part, whispered back, "Don't get attached. Don't do this to yourself again." Still, every morning she went straight to Noah's side. And every morning she hoped for another sign. Then one morning, it happened again. Sophia prepared the basin like before, warm water, a little soap, clean towels folded neatly on the glass table. Her movements were calm, almost ritualistic now. She lifted Noah gently, his small hands limp, his body as still as ever. But as soon as she dipped the sponge into the water and brought it close to his face, his eyelids fluttered. A single slow blink, she froze, her chest filled with warmth. And then, something she hadn't expected, a sound, a word. "Mo." It came from deep within him, broken and soft, more breath than voice. Sophia's hands trembled. The sponge fell into the basin with a soft splash. She stared, barely breathing. Then again, "Mo." "Mommy?" The word was imperfect, slurred, but real. Her heart felt like it stopped. She didn't move. She didn't even blink. Noah's lips moved again. "Mommy." A single tear rolled down her cheek. He looked at her. Not past her, not through her, but at her. For the first time, those unfocused eyes found something, someone. Her throat tightened. She wanted to say something, anything, but her voice had vanished. She just sat there, frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief and something deeper, recognition. Slowly, Noah's small hand lifted from the water. It trembled as it rose, tiny droplets running down his wrist. He reached toward her face, his fingers brushing her cheek, light as a feather. Sophia gasped softly, afraid to move, afraid to break whatever spell had been cast. He touched her. He saw her. Then his hand dropped back into the water, and silence returned. But not the same kind of silence. This one was alive. This one had meaning. Sophia wiped her eyes quickly, forcing herself to stay composed. She continued the bath in quiet awe, her movements slower, softer, almost reverent. Every stroke of the sponge felt sacred now. He didn't say another word, didn't blink again, but his presence felt different. The emptiness was no longer complete. When she finished, she lifted him from the water and wrapped him in the towel again. He sighed softly as she dried his face, and for a moment she imagined he leaned into her touch. She dressed him carefully, whispering his name, "Noah." No reaction, but she saw his eyelashes flutter once, barely perceptible. Her chest filled with emotion she couldn't describe. She didn't know what any of it meant, but she knew what she'd seen, what she'd felt. The blink, the word, the touch. It wasn't random, it was connection. For the first time since she arrived, She believed this boy wasn't lost. He was just locked away somewhere deep inside himself. And maybe, just maybe, she could reach him. That night, when she returned to her room, she didn't cry. For the first time in months, she smiled. A quiet, exhausted, trembling smile, but real. She took out a piece of paper from her drawer, wrote down a few simple words, and folded it neatly beneath her pillow. It said, "He blinked. He spoke. He's still in there." Then she whispered softly to the dark ceiling, "Maybe you sent me here, my love. Maybe this is why." Outside, the night wind moved through the trees. Inside, for the first time in a very long time, Sophia dreamed of light. The next morning, Sophia woke before sunrise. Sleep had barely touched her, but she didn't care. Her heart felt alive for the first time since she could remember. She replayed Noah's voice in her head over and over. That broken, trembling word, "Mommy." It echoed like a secret she wasn't supposed to hear. A sound too beautiful to belong to such a quiet house. She moved through her morning routine with purpose. The smell of soap, the clatter of silver trays, the soft hum of running water. Everything felt new, lighter, almost meaningful. Her hands no longer moved out of duty. They moved out of hope. Sophia prepared the same small basin on the glass table in the marble atrium. She filled it with warm water, just the right temperature, added a few drops of soap, and watched bubbles bloom across the surface. The sunlight was still pale, reaching through the tall windows in long golden lines. The house, as always, was silent, but to her it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like it was waiting. She walked to the grand hall where Noah sat quietly on his playmat, his little hands resting in his lap. He was wearing a soft blue onesie, his head tilted slightly down, eyes wide but unfocused. Sophia knelt beside him, scooping him gently into her arms. He didn't resist. He never did, but this time she felt something faint, a soft shift in his breathing, a flicker of awareness. As she carried him back toward the atrium, she whispered, "It's just us again, little one. Let's see if you remember." Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to hide it. When she lowered him into the warm water, he stayed calm. His tiny arms floated weightlessly, his chest rising and falling in slow rhythm. Sophia dipped the sponge, squeezed it gently, and began washing him. Her movements were steady, her eyes fixed on his face. At first, nothing happened. He looked the same, still distant, unreachable. But as she moved the sponge toward his forehead again, letting the foam slide toward the corners of his eyelids fluttered once, then again. A blink. Sophia froze, her pulse quickening. A moment later, his lips parted. Mo. The sound was weak, strained, but real. Her hands trembled as she stared at him, afraid to even breathe. Then it came again, a little clearer this time. "Mommy!" Sophia gasped quietly, tears instantly burning behind her eyes. The sponge slipped from her fingers, landing softly in the basin. Her hands went to her mouth as she tried to stop herself from sobbing. He had said it again, the same word, the same soft plea. And he was looking at her while he said it. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a reflex. This was communication. Sophia's heart felt like it was breaking open all over again. Not from pain this time, but from something fragile and miraculous. Noah lifted one small hand again, just like before, and touched her cheek. It was clumsy, uncertain, but it was a touch that carried life. Her breath hitched as his tiny fingers brushed against her skin, warm and trembling. Then his hand dropped back into the water, sending tiny ripples across the basin. Sophia sat perfectly still. Tears ran freely down her face. He wasn't gone. He wasn't lost inside himself. He was trying. He was reaching. She whispered softly through her tears, "You see me, don't you? You really see me." Noah blinked again, slow and deliberate, as if answering her. Then his gaze shifted, following the movement of her hand as she reached for a towel. Her lips parted in disbelief. He was tracking motion. He was responding to light. She lifted her hand higher, moving it gently from left to right. His eyes followed. Sophia's knees went weak. A sob escaped her lips before she could stop it. It was small, quiet, almost reverent. She finished the bath carefully, drying him with a soft towel, her hands trembling with every movement. When she dressed him again in a clean white outfit, she noticed something new. His little fingers gripped hers, just for a second. A reflex maybe, but she didn't believe in coincidences anymore. As she carried him back to the playmat, she could still feel the warmth of his touch against her cheek. The house seemed different now, lighter, softer. For the first time since she arrived, Sophia didn't feel like she was working in a tomb. She felt alive. She sat beside him on the rug, watching as he blinked softly at the sunlight streaming through the tall glass windows. There was something so small and sacred about the way his chest rose and fell, so fragile it almost hurt to look at him. The rest of the house moved on as if nothing had changed. Finch passed through the hall, silent as always, polishing brass handles and rearranging vases. Charles remained upstairs in his study, locked away from the world. But Sophia knew something extraordinary had happened, and she was the only one who had seen it. That evening she stood by her window, watching the sun set over the estate's gardens. The light turned golden, touching the trees like a quiet promise. She pressed a hand to her chest, still feeling the ghost of his tiny fingers there. "Mommy," she whispered under her breath, repeating his word as if saying it might make it real. Tears welled again, but this time they didn't fall from pain. They fell from wonder. That night, she couldn't eat. She couldn't rest. Her mind kept circling back to the same moment. That blink, that sound, that hand reaching for her. It was more than progress. It was proof. Sophia knew she couldn't tell anyone yet, not until she was sure. The world inside the Morgan estate wasn't ready to believe in miracles, but she was. The next morning, she woke before dawn again, more determined than ever. As she prepared the basin, she whispered to herself, "Let's see you again, Noah. Show me that spark one more time." Her hands shook slightly as she carried him to the table. She washed him just like before, the same water, the same gentle rhythm. And once again, he blinked. Every time the foam brushed near his eyes, his lids fluttered softly. Every time she spoke, he turned slightly toward her voice. And once, when she whispered his name, he made a faint humming sound, a fragile little melody of recognition. Sophia felt the tears coming again, but she smiled through them. He was fighting his way back, slowly, quietly, but surely. For the first time in months, someone had seen him, really seen him, and he was beginning to see back. She didn't know how long it would last or what it meant, but one thing was certain. This was not a miracle. This was awakening, and Sophia Hale was not going to let him slip back into darkness again. Over the next few days, Sophia followed the same quiet routine. Same basin, same warmth, same soft soap bubbles drifting over the marble table. But now every movement carried purpose. She wasn't just bathing a baby anymore. She was studying him. Each morning, she tested tiny things. A tilt of her hand, a flicker of motion, a brush of light through the curtains. And every time Noah reacted. Sometimes he blinked. Sometimes his head turned slightly toward the glow. Sometimes, if the light hit just right, his lips moved in small murmurs, as if forming sounds he didn't yet know how to speak. Sophia took notes in secret, tiny scribbles on folded pieces of paper hidden under her mattress. She wrote down every reaction, every sound, every blink, because she knew no one would believe her unless she had proof. Noah's eyes weren't empty anymore. They moved, softly, carefully, but they moved. It wasn't perfect, and it wasn't constant, but it was there. A fragile rhythm of awareness coming alive again. When Sophia opened the curtains a little wider than usual one morning, she noticed him squint for the first time. It was small, like a flinch against the light. Her heart nearly stopped. She turned away quickly, pretending it hadn't happened. But inside, joy exploded like sunlight through storm clouds. Every day she grew more deliberate. She would place a bright red toy near him and move it slowly from left to right. Some days he followed it, other days not at all. But she didn't lose faith. Even the smallest response meant the world. She began to suspect that Noah wasn't blind at all, at least not completely. Maybe there was more happening behind those wide blue eyes than anyone had ever thought possible. But she also knew the danger of hope inside a house like this. Finch wouldn't care. Charles wouldn't believe her. And if she spoke too soon, the truth might be buried again, so she kept her secret. She waited. She watched. And she believed, at night, she'd whisper into the silence, "I know you see me, Noah, even if they don't." Sometimes she imagined that he heard her, that somewhere inside that stillness, a small boy was trying to find his way back to the world. Then, one afternoon, Sophia noticed something strange. Finch entered the nursery carrying a small brown bottle. He opened it, tilted Noah's chin gently, and dropped 2 tiny droplets into each of his eyes. The baby didn't flinch, didn't react at all. Then Finch wiped his hands, put the bottle away, and left the room without a word. Sophia frowned. She had assumed it was part of a medical routine, but something about it felt wrong. The label was faded, almost unreadable. When he left, she picked up the bottle from the table, turning it over in her hand. The print was smudged, the edges worn. She brought it closer to the light, trying to make out the letters. The expiration date had passed, months ago. Her stomach tightened. It was prescribed for optic treatment, but the details were almost invisible. She put it back quickly, afraid Finch might return, but the thought haunted her for the rest of the day. That night, when the house was quiet and everyone asleep, she sat on her bed with her phone, searching the faded name she had managed to read. It took her nearly an hour to find a match. Her eyes widened as the screen lit up with results. The medication wasn't meant for blindness at all. It was used to reduce light sensitivity, prescribed for patients whose eyes hurt when exposed to brightness. Not for infants, not for stimulation. Sophia scrolled further. The side effects chilled her. Blurry vision, delayed pupil response, reduced ability to detect brightness. Her mind raced. What if Noah wasn't blind? What if these drops were the reason his eyes never reacted to light? She felt her pulse pounding as she whispered into the darkness, "They've been keeping him blind." The realization was unbearable. Was it a mistake, negligence, or something worse? She didn't sleep that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Noah's small face. Those blinking eyes, that word mommy, that tiny reaching hand. Had all of it only happened because the drops were wearing off? Was that why he was finally seeing her? The thought sent a shiver through her body. She couldn't accuse anyone yet, not without proof. But she knew one thing for sure. Something was wrong in this house. Terribly wrong. The next morning she watched closely. At exactly the same time as before, Finch came again with the bottle. 2 drops in each eye. Noah didn't move. Hours passed. And Sophia noticed it, the change. His eyes dulled again. That faint spark from yesterday faded. His responses slowed. By evening, he had gone still again. Her heart broke watching it happen. The difference was undeniable. When the medicine was in him, his world dimmed. When it wore off, light returned. Sophia clenched her fists. This wasn't coincidence. This was control. But why? Why would anyone want to keep him in darkness? Was it ignorance, or was it something deeper? Something Charles didn't even realize was happening under his own roof. That evening, she found Charles standing alone by the window of his study, staring out over the gardens. He looked tired, older than his years. She wanted to tell him everything, but she hesitated. What if he thought she was crazy? What if he fired her and the truth got buried again? So she stayed silent, for now. That night, Sophia wrote another note for herself, folding it tightly before slipping it under her pillow. It said, "The drops make him blind. Without them he sees. I need proof." The next few days became a quiet experiment. Sophia began observing patterns. What time Finch came, how long it took for Noah's eyes to dull, when they brightened again. Her notes grew longer, filled with precise times and reactions. She noticed something else too. When she whispered Noah's name in the mornings just before the next dose, he always blinked. Every time. But after the drops, nothing. Not even a flinch. Sophia's fear turned into quiet determination. She wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a witness. And if she was right, this child had been living in a darkness that wasn't his own. She didn't know how long she could keep it hidden, but one thing was certain. She couldn't let them blind him again. That night she stood by his crib, watching him sleep. The faint glow from the night lamp touched his face, small, soft, peaceful. He stirred slightly, and for the briefest moment, his eyes fluttered open. They caught the light, and for a heartbeat Sophia saw it again, that spark. That fragile proof of life. She whispered softly, her voice trembling but steady. "I'll find a way, Noah. I promise you." Outside, the wind howled against the windows. Inside, a mother who'd lost her child silently vowed to save another. By the end of that week, Sophia was no longer the same woman who had stepped through the doors of the Morgan estate. She moved with purpose now, not as a servant, but as someone who carried a secret too powerful to share. Every sound, every breath, every blink from Noah felt like proof of something sacred, something worth fighting for. The house remained silent, but her heart no longer was. She could feel the truth pulsing beneath the quiet, a truth she wasn't sure she could hide for much longer. Each morning, she observed the same cruel pattern. Finch would enter with the small brown bottle, 2 drops, no reaction. Then, as the day stretched on, Noah's eyes would slowly come back to life. He would blink, move, hum, sometimes even follow light. Then the next dose came, and the world went dark again. Sophia wrote everything down, the times, the responses, the smallest changes in his breathing. Her notes read like a confession no one had asked for. But she needed them, because one day she would have to show someone, and that day came sooner than she expected. It was late afternoon. The sun cast long gold shadows across the marble floor of the atrium. Sophia had just prepared the bath as usual. Warm water, soap bubbles, towels. The basin glowed faintly under the light. She dipped her hands into the water, calming her nerves before picking up Noah. Her hands were trembling. Not from fear, but from what she was about to prove. If she was right, today would change everything. She lowered him gently into the water. His skin was soft, his face calm. She took a deep breath, dipped the sponge and began washing him. Slow, steady circles, the same way she always did. Then she tilted the sponge toward his face, letting the foam slide near his eyes. A blink. Her heart raced. Another blink, and then a sound. "Mo!" She froze. The sound grew stronger. "Mo! Mommy!" Sophia's chest tightened as tears filled her eyes. He said it again, clearer this time. He looked at her, not through her, but at her. The light hit his pupils, and she saw it. The smallest dilation, the faint shimmer of recognition. He could see. He really could. Before she could move, a sound startled her. A door creaked open behind her. Footsteps echoed against the marble. Sophia turned quickly. Charles Morgan stood in the doorway, holding his phone in one hand and his coat in the other. His face froze when he saw the scene. The basin, the sponge, the bubbles. Sophia leaning over the child. Noah sitting upright in the water, foam clinging to his tiny arms. And then he heard it. The word, "Mommy." Everything in him stopped. The phone slipped from his hand, hitting the floor with a dull thud. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then his voice broke through, rough, uncertain. What's going on here?" Sophia opened her mouth, but words failed her. She couldn't explain what she had seen. Not yet. Her eyes darted between Charles and Noah, her heart hammering. But before she could answer, something miraculous happened. Noah turned his head, slowly, deliberately, toward the sound of his father's voice. Charles stopped walking. He stared at his son, frozen mid-step, unable to breathe. Noah's eyes, those once lifeless eyes, were focused. They were seeing. For a long, suspended moment, father and son looked at each other. Sophia's throat tightened. Tears blurred her vision. She whispered softly, almost to herself. He saw the foam. "And he called me Mommy." Charles blinked, disbelief written across his face. He took one slow step forward. "Eli," he started to say, then caught himself. "Noah?" His voice trembled. "He's looking at me." Noah blinked again, his gaze still fixed on his father. Then, with a small sound, he reached one hand toward the light glinting off the edge of the basin. His tiny fingers stretched, slow, deliberate. Charles's eyes widened. His knees nearly buckled. He crouched beside the table, ignoring the expensive suit, the water, the soap. He leaned closer, whispering, "You're looking at me, aren't you?" Noah blinked again. "Mommy," he murmured, his voice soft but clear. Sophia covered her mouth to keep from sobbing. Charles turned to her, still kneeling. "How long has this been happening?" Sophia hesitated. Her mind raced. She couldn't tell him everything, not yet, not about the drops, not without proof. But she also couldn't lie. "Just a few days," she said quietly. "I wasn't sure until now." Charles's voice broke. He smiled at me. It was faint, but it was real. A small upward curve of Noah's lips. Sophia nodded slowly, her voice trembling. "It's real. He's responding. He sees the foam, the movement, the light. He sees you." Charles stood frozen for a long time, staring at his son as if the world had stopped turning. When he finally spoke, his voice was soft and unsteady. "All this time, I thought he was gone, that there was nothing behind those eyes." Sophia said nothing. She didn't need to. The proof was right there in front of them, a father's reflection shining in his son's eyes for the first time. Charles reached out, touching Noah's shoulder gently. The boy blinked and smiled faintly again. That was all the confirmation he needed. Sophia's tears spilled over. Her entire body trembled. She knew what this meant, not just for Noah, but for Charles too. For the first time since Isabella's death, he wasn't looking at emptiness. He was looking at life. Minutes passed in silence. Neither of them moved. Then Charles took a long, deep breath and whispered, "I need to understand." "Why now? Why all of a sudden?" Sophia's eyes darted to the corner of the room, where the small brown bottle still sat on the counter. She hesitated. Not yet. He wasn't ready to hear it. "Something changed," she said softly. "I don't know how, but it started during the baths." Charles nodded slowly, his mind spinning. He reached forward and touched Noah's cheek. The baby blinked once more. Charles let out a long, shaking breath. "He's looking at me," he whispered again. "My God, he's actually looking at me." Sophia lifted Noah from the basin and wrapped him in a towel, drying him carefully. Charles stood beside her, silent, still processing what had just happened. No one spoke. Only the sound of water dripping softly into the basin broke the quiet. Sophia looked at Charles and said gently, "This isn't a miracle, Mr. Morgan. It's truth." He nodded faintly, his eyes wet. "I thought he was lost to me," he said. "Maybe he wasn't," Sophia replied. "Maybe he was just waiting for someone to see him." Charles looked at her for a long moment, really looked at her. And for the first time he understood. This woman, this quiet maid, had just shown him something no doctor ever could. That night, the estate was different. It didn't feel like a mausoleum anymore. It felt alive, quietly, tremblingly alive. And in the faint glow of the nursery lamp, a father finally watched his son sleep, not in silence, but in peace. After the bath, the house felt charged. Charles paced the study, phone in hand, mind racing. He looked at the small brown bottle on the counter, forgotten there, and something in him tightened. He could not ignore what he had seen. For the first time in months, his son had looked at him, had spoken, had reached. Sophia sat across from him in the study, hands folded, voice steady though her hands trembled. She told him everything, the blinks, the word, the touch, the pattern of doses. She produced the notes she had kept, small pages folded, ink smudged from secret tears. Charles read them slowly. Each line tightened his jaw. "That bottle, where did it come from?" he asked. "Finch brought it," she said. "He applies it every afternoon." The label was faded. It looked old. Charles stood abruptly. He walked to the hall, the portraits of his family watching him like witnesses. He moved through rooms he had walked 100 times, but now saw anew. He carried Noah upstairs, cradling him with a care he had not known he possessed. "I trusted the doctors," Charles said, voice low. "I trusted them and I stopped asking." He called the clinic listed on Noah's file. A receptionist answered with practiced calm. Charles's questions sounded thin and frantic. He asked for records, for prescriptions, for the name of the attending physician. The receptionist offered reassurance. "Dr. Adrian Crowell handled early care," she said. "He's very experienced." That night, sleepless, Charles and Sophia sat at the study desk with the glow of 2 screens. They searched, clicked, read. Dr. Adrian Crowell's name surfaced in forums and complaint archives. A professional review flagged irregular prescriptions. An investigative article mentioned disciplinary hearings. Then the dam broke. An official order revoking his license for ethical violations dated nearly a year ago. Charles felt the room tilt. He read the legal notice aloud, disbelief cracking his voice. Revoked. Unethical treatments. Falsified records. All the quiet months returned at once. Noah's blank eyes, the silent nursery, the toys that never played. Grief folded into anger until Charles could not tell them apart. He looked at Sophia, who met his gaze without wavering. "We stopped the drops," she said. "No more medicine unless you approve," he nodded. "Effective immediately. No more secret treatments." He called Mr. Carter, the lawyer he trusted, and arranged an urgent meeting. "I want an investigation. I want records. And I want answers," he said, each demand steady and cold. Over the next hours, Charles moved with a new urgency. He confronted Finch quietly at first, asking where the bottle had come from and who authorized it. Finch's response was measured, routine, part of a diagnosed plan. His face stayed unreadable. But when Charles insisted on receipts, prescriptions, and a chain of custody for the medication, Finch hesitated. The man's practiced calm cracked. Sophia documented everything. Her small notebook filled with times, names, and evasive phrases. She photographed the faded bottle and tucked the images away. Charles ordered that no medication be given to Noah without direct approval and verification of the prescriber. Within days, Charles arranged for an independent consultant. Dr. Evelyn Hartman arrived at the estate, professional, calm, and objective. She observed Noah, spoke gently, and reviewed the old prescriptions. Her expression turned grave as she reviewed labels and notes. "These drops do not promote vision development," Dr. Hartman explained. "They are formulated to reduce light sensitivity. In infants used improperly, they can blur vision and slow pupil response. Chronic use can mimic blindness." Her voice was clinical but kind. Charles listened like someone hearing a sentence in a foreign language he had once known. Months rearranged themselves into missed moments. "How could this happen?" he asked, raw. "Negligence," she said. "Possibly malpractice. We need a full review." Legal wheels started turning. Mr. Carter filed notices and requested medical files. Investigators called clinics and pharmacies. Journalists smelled a story and parked cameras near the gates. Charles, who had avoided headlines, found himself conducting interviews because he wanted the truth exposed, not the spectacle. Inside the house without the drops, Noah began to change in small, steady ways. He tracked light more reliably. He reached for objects with more confidence. His sounds grew richer, murmurs into syllables, syllables into repeated attempts at words. Sophia kept the routine of baths and light play. Each tiny response stitched a new fabric into their days. At night, Charles sat with Noah on his lap, hands steady now, phone turned off. He memorized the shape of his son's face, as if learning it for the first time. He could not undo the months lost, but he vowed to protect what remained. Sophia watched the transformation with a quiet intensity. Her grief was still a shadow, but now there was hope that shared space with it. She had found the evidence and had risked everything to keep the child safe. The gratitude in Charles's eyes was wordless, deep, private, and heavy. "Thank you," he said once, voice breaking. She nodded. She had done what she came to do, see what others refused to see. Outside, the mansion's gates closed for the night, but inside, lights stayed on. They burned not from fear, but from resolve. The faded bottle sat on a kitchen counter, now tagged and photographed, an accusation waiting for answers. As investigators assembled records and nurses' schedules, Sophia kept working with Noah. He laughed once, a small, surprised sound when she made a silly face. The sound echoed through rooms that had forgotten laughter. The first legal steps were only the beginning. What started as one maid's quiet insistence on truth was now a case that could ripple beyond the estate. People would ask why a child had been left in darkness, how mistakes had been hidden, who had benefited from silence. For now, the story remained between them. A father who had finally seen his child, a woman who would not look away, and a baby who, dropped by drop of time without the medicine, was finding his way back to light. Days passed quietly after the decision to end the drops. There was no dramatic transformation overnight, only silence, patience, and the slow return of something that had been missing all along: response. On the first morning without medication, Sophia opened the curtains in Noah's room a little wider. The sunlight poured in, golden and soft, painting streaks across the floor. For a moment she thought it would be like every other day. Then Noah blinked quickly and turned his head toward the light. She gasped, covering her mouth. It was small, barely noticeable to anyone else, but to her it was everything. He had turned on his own. Sophia didn't rush to tell Charles yet. She wanted to see more, to be sure. That afternoon, she placed a bright yellow toy duck in front of him, wiggling it gently. Noah's eyes followed it, slow but deliberate. Then, without warning, he laughed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't long, but it was real. Sophia froze, the toy still in her hand. Her throat closed as tears blurred her sight. It was the sound of life reborn. Each day after that brought new proof, a small gesture here, a blink, a smile, a reach. Each one felt like a miracle wrapped in simplicity. Sophia began to build new games for him. She cut out colored shapes from old paper, red circles, blue triangles, yellow stars. She glued them onto cardboard, testing his focus. When she moved them side to side, he followed. When she brought them close, he reached. Charles started joining her during these quiet sessions. At first, he stood at a distance, unsure if what he was seeing was real or hope's illusion. But day after day, the truth became impossible to deny. Noah wasn't lost. He was learning. He was seeing. One morning, Charles sat beside Sophia on the rug, both watching Noah crawl toward a patch of sunlight near the window. He reached for it, tiny fingers opening and closing around golden air. Charles exhaled, shaking his head. "I never thought I'd see this." Sophia smiled faintly. He always could. He just needed the world to stop dimming his light. Charles looked at her, eyes softening. "You gave him back to me." Sophia shook her head. "He was never gone. We just hadn't looked the right way." From that day on, the estate changed. Curtains that had stayed shut for months were pulled open. The marble floors reflected light again. The sound of toys rolling, small laughter, and gentle voices filled the hallways once more. Charles brought in new specialists, honest ones this time. Dr. Evelyn Hartman returned for a follow-up evaluation. She watched Noah as he reached for colors, tracked movement, and reacted to sound. Her conclusion was careful but hopeful. "He has partial vision," she explained. "It's likely he always did. The drops suppressed his sensitivity. With continued stimulation and care, he'll keep improving. Charles sat back, wiping his face quietly. After all this time, he whispered, I thought he'd never see me. Dr. Hartman smiled gently. He always could. He just needed someone who saw him first. Those words stayed with him. Weeks turned into months, and the house slowly became a home again. Sophia's voice filled the mornings with gentle songs. Noah's laughter followed like a melody that the walls had been waiting to hear. Even Finch, usually rigid, began to soften. He brought toys from storage, polished old picture frames, and stayed longer in rooms where joy had replaced stillness. Charles's days revolved around the boy. He learned the rhythm of Noah's reactions, the tilt of his head when curious, the soft hums when he was pleased. Sophia taught him how to guide play with light, how to move toys, how to use mirrors, how to make vision into discovery. One evening, as dusk settled outside, Sophia sat by the window holding Noah. The sky was streaked in orange and rose gold, and the boy was fixated on it, blinking against the glow. She whispered softly, That's what it feels like to see, little one. The world has color again. Charles stood in the doorway, watching them quietly. Something about the scene, the woman, the child, the light, felt like forgiveness. For all the things he had failed to see, for all the times he had chosen silence instead of faith, he spoke softly. You changed everything. Sophia turned, eyes reflecting the setting sun. No, she said. He changed. I just didn't look away. Charles nodded slowly. He knew it was true. In saving Noah, she had saved him too. The estate no longer carried the echo of grief. Now it carried laughter. The boy who had lived in darkness was discovering light, one blink at a time. And the woman who once came here to escape her pain had found her purpose in his. In the quiet glow of evening, Sophia placed Noah on the rug. He crawled toward the last streak of sunlight, reached for it, and smiled. She smiled too, whispering the only words that mattered anymore. You see the light now, don't you? Noah blinked once, soft and calm, his way of saying yes. The investigation moved fast. Within weeks, Charles's legal team gathered documents, prescriptions, and interviews from clinics across the state. Every file revealed the same name, Dr. Adrian Crowell, and every report traced back to the same pattern of negligence. The world outside the Morgan estate began to whisper. Articles appeared in small medical forums, then spread to local news. A billionaire's son falsely diagnosed as blind. A maid uncovers truth through care. The words felt surreal to Sophia. She hadn't asked for recognition. All she wanted was for Noah to see, but truth has a way of breaking its own silence. Lawyers visited the house daily. Photographers lingered at the gates, shouting questions Charles refused to answer. He gave only one public statement. My son was never blind. He was made blind by those who stopped looking for truth. Inside the estate, Sophia avoided the cameras. She stayed with Noah, teaching him colors, letting him trace her face with his tiny hands. She didn't want fame. She wanted peace. When the court date arrived, the world watched. Reporters filled the marble steps of Westbridge County Court, their voices echoing across the plaza. Inside, the air was heavy with tension. Dr. Crowell sat at the defense table, head bowed, his lawyer whispering beside him. Charles sat in front, Sophia behind him with Noah in her lap. The baby played with a soft cloth, unaware of the storm around him. When Sophia's name was called, she rose. Her palms were damp, her steps steady but slow. She took the stand, swore the oath, and faced the sea of faces that had come to watch. Her voice was quiet but clear. I was hired to clean, she said. I wasn't a nurse or a specialist or anyone important, but I saw something that didn't make sense. He wasn't blind. He just needed someone to notice. The courtroom stayed silent. Even the scribbling of pens paused. Charles watched her, eyes full of something that wasn't just gratitude, it was reverence. Then it was his turn. He stood, adjusting his jacket, and faced the judge. His voice, once used for boardrooms and deals, now trembled with emotion. "My son lived in darkness because of a lie," he said. "For months I believed it. I accepted it. I let others tell me what was true. But it was this woman," he gestured toward Sophia, "who refused to look away. She saw what I didn't. And she gave my son back his light." Murmurs filled the room. The defense lawyer objected, but it didn't matter. The truth was already shining too brightly to hide. Evidence was presented: expired bottles, falsified prescriptions, records of payments that should never have existed. The chain of neglect was clear. Dr. Crowell's voice cracked when he finally spoke. "I was following a protocol," he said, but his eyes betrayed guilt. The jury saw it too. The verdict came swiftly. Guilty, medical negligence, fraud, license permanently revoked. As the gavel struck, the tension that had haunted the Morgans' home for years finally shattered. Outside, the media erupted, but inside the courtroom, there was only quiet relief. Charles turned to Sophia. He didn't speak. He just nodded, eyes wet. She smiled faintly. It was done. That night, news channels across the country carried the story. Housemaid uncovers truth behind false blindness case. Billionaire's son saved by a maid's instinct. The world called her a hero. Sophia didn't feel like one. She was still the same woman who once hid her grief in silence. Only now, that silence had purpose. Letters began arriving at the estate. Thank yous from mothers, doctors, families who had doubted their own diagnoses. Some wrote, "You gave us courage to question." Others said, "You helped us believe again." Sophia read them quietly at night, then tucked them into a small box beneath her bed. She didn't need praise. She already had what mattered most: truth, and a little boy who could finally see her face. In the weeks after the trial, the press faded away. The estate grew peaceful again. Noah's laughter filled the halls like music, soft and golden. Charles worked from home. His days centered around playtime instead of meetings. Sometimes, he would stop in the middle of the hall just to listen. To that small voice that once said, "Mommy!" and to the quiet strength of the woman who had brought light back to both of them. And every time their eyes met, Sophia would give the same humble smile. She hadn't done it for glory. She had done it because she saw what no one else did. In that truth, there was power, and in that power there was peace. Months passed. The world eventually moved on from the headlines, but inside the Morgan estate, life had truly begun. Noah was no longer the still, silent baby who stared into nothing. He was full of life now, laughing, crawling, reaching. He chased after colorful toys, clapped when music played, and pointed at things he recognized. The boy who once lived in darkness was now drawn to every glimmer of light. Sophia continued her gentle routines: baths, stories, games. But now, laughter filled those moments where silence once lived. Charles joined them often, sitting on the rug while Noah babbled between them, tiny fingers tracing faces he now knew by heart. The house itself seemed to change. The cold marble floors that once echoed with grief now reflected warmth. Curtains stayed open. Windows were always filled with morning sun. Finch, once a ghost of duty, smiled sometimes, quietly amused by Noah's little antics. And for the first time since Isabella's death, the air inside that home felt alive. One morning, a letter arrived addressed to Charles Morgan. The envelope bore a golden seal embossed with the crest of the Harper Foundation, a national children's charity. Inside, the message read, "We are honored to recognize your son, Noah Morgan, whose remarkable journey has inspired countless families. We invite you and your family to attend our annual Children of Courage ceremony." Charles read it twice, his hands shaking. He walked to Sophia, who was feeding Noah in the kitchen, and handed her the letter. "They want to honor him," he said quietly, still processing the words. Sophia smiled softly. "Do they know he's just a baby?" "They do," Charles replied. but they said his story reminded the world what seeing really means. A week later, they boarded a small private plane bound for the city. The event was held at the Harper Foundation Hall, a bright, colorful auditorium decorated with ribbons, balloons, and soft music echoing through its corridors. Children played, parents laughed, cameras flashed. It was nothing like the quiet estate. Noah's eyes darted everywhere. Lights, colors, people, so much motion that he couldn't stop giggling. He clapped when the music rose, fascinated by the shimmer of the stage lights. Sophia held him close, overwhelmed by how alive he looked, how awake. As the ceremony began, families came forward one by one, sharing stories of illness, healing, and survival. Then came the final name, Noah Morgan. A video appeared on the big screen, soft instrumental music playing under images of Noah's journey. Pictures of the estate, the marble atrium, the foam on his cheeks, the courtroom, and the first smile that had changed everything. The title beneath read, The Baby Who Saw Light. Charles walked to the stage with Noah in his arms. The audience applauded gently. The host smiled warmly, placing a small golden medal with a blue ribbon into Charles's hands. Noah reached for it immediately, grasping the shiny surface, fascinated by its glow. Laughter filled the room. Then the host paused, glancing toward the audience. "There's one more person we must honor tonight," she said. "The one who saw the truth before anyone else did. The one who turned compassion into courage. Please welcome Sophia Hale." Sophia froze. Her eyes widened as the spotlight found her in the crowd. She shook her head slightly, caught between shock and disbelief. Charles turned toward her, smiling. He mouthed, "Go on." Hands trembling, Sophia rose. As she stepped toward the stage, the audience began to clap again, slowly at first, then louder, warmer. When she reached them, Noah reached his arms out toward her, smiling wide. She took him into her arms, and the boy giggled, pressing his face into her shoulder. Then, in that perfect silence between applause and emotion, Noah spoke, clear, soft, true. "Mommy." The word echoed across the hall. Not like the first time, broken and uncertain, but strong, full of meaning. Sophia's breath caught. Tears filled her eyes instantly. The audience fell silent, then rose in a standing ovation. The host smiled, voice trembling with emotion. Some titles are earned by degree, others are earned by love. Tonight we honor both. She placed a silver medal around Sophia's neck. For seeing what no one else saw, Sophia couldn't speak. She just whispered, "Thank you," and held Noah tighter. Charles placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes glistening. "You deserve this," he said quietly. Noah giggled, holding both medals, his gold one and hers, clinking them together as if he understood their weight. The crowd laughed softly, wiping their eyes. As the ceremony ended, they walked out into the bright afternoon sun. Reporters called their names, but Charles waved them off politely. He looked at Sophia, who was carrying Noah against her chest. The boy was already half asleep, small fingers tangled in the fabric of her dress. "I think he meant it," Charles said softly. When he said "Mommy," Sophia smiled through quiet tears. "I know he did." They drove home as the sun set behind the city skyline. That night the house was peaceful. Noah slept soundly in his crib, one small hand clutching the medal's ribbon. Sophia sat beside him for a long time, just watching, breathing in the stillness. She didn't whisper prayers anymore. She didn't carry grief like a wound. She carried love, steady, quiet, alive. For her, for Charles, for Noah, and for the truth that had finally come to light. And as the night settled over the estate, one soft beam of moonlight fell across the boy's face. His eyelids fluttered once, slow and calm. Then, even in his sleep, Noah smiled, because this time he wasn't dreaming of darkness. He was dreaming of light. Finally, we've reached the end of this story. I'm genuinely grateful that you've made it this far. Thank you so much for watching till the very end. Tell me in the comments, what did you feel while watching? Which moment touched you the most? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because more stories like this, filled with truth, emotion, and hope, are coming very soon. Until next time.